Hello everyone! Today I'm going to show you a presentation about modes of communication. Do not worry because your module has been posted to your Google Classroom last Sunday. So you can take a look at your copies or you can also watch the video instead. Okay? So let's begin. Communication modes here also refers to the channel or the medium, as you can remember from our elements of communication. And in this channel, you can express your communicative intent. It is the medium through which one conveys his or her thoughts. Views or feelings can be communicated through face-to-face interaction. Next, we have video or video interaction or communication. Next, we have audio communication, and last but not least, the text-based communication. So we're going to discuss each of these modes. First, let's discuss a face-to-face interaction. When you say face-to-face, obviously this refers to the interaction you make when you are talking to someone in person. Okay? So it is defined as an informal or casual conversation between two or more people. And people engage in social conversations to establish relationships or maintain them. It is one way of gaining new acquaintances or friends. An example of face-to-face interaction is when you talk to your family members at home, or when you talk to your friends in person, or anyone that you talk to in person. Okay? And how to speak, what to speak, when to speak, and to whom one is speaking are all important considerations in building relationships. And faced with a group of new people who you do not know in a social gathering, you should be able to begin a conversation. One example is when you are in a classroom during your first day of class, right? And I think all of us have experienced this already because we have been there in the past where we may know a few or none at all inside the classroom. And you will be able to test the saying, first impressions last. In this case, depending on the kind of impression you leave to your audience, you can create either a positive or a negative image of yourself. So, an example of first impressions are the impressions that our classmates leave to us, or the impressions that our instructors or teachers leave to us. Let's say, for example, during the first day of class, we might be thinking that our teacher seems to be strict, but in the end, or eventually, we will find out that our teacher is not that strict at all. Okay? So it's something like that. Or it could be our classmates. Like, for example, when you meet or when you met your seatmate during the first day of class, you may think that your seatmate seems to be shy or a bit shy. But eventually, as time passes by, you will discover that your seatmate is not that shy, but in fact the opposite. Okay? One advantage of face-to-face interaction is that you are able to note visual cues through facial expressions, gestures, movements, or even objects or realia from the person you are communicating with. So let's say you are talking to someone in person, and then you are going to compare it when you are talking to someone through video or through video chat. Okay, so you are going to discover or see some facial expressions or gestures or body movements in person than you can in a video call. Okay, let's say you are talking to someone in a video chat and then you cannot see his or her body movements because you can only see his or her face. Whereas if you're going to talk to a person in person, you are going to see everything from his facial expressions, gestures, and body language or body movements. Okay, the WA suggests Be brave enough to start a conversation that matters. It means that even if the people surrounding you in a social event are strangers to you, you need to be confident enough to meet new faces and initiate an interesting conversation. And I also think that everybody of you here in our section is confident enough to start a conversation. But what kind of topics matter to strangers you are meeting for the first time? Can you remember the first time you talked to your seatmate? And what are the topics that you talked about? You may have had started with asking his or her name, or where she or he graduated, or what is his or her course, and etc. In a social gathering like a wedding, for instance, you do not dwell on topics that are never ending in nature, meaning these are topics that do not end in one day. Okay? You do not discuss politics and religion, as these are sensitive issues that may impinge on one's belief and practices. Okay? So, have you witnessed or have you experienced talking to someone about politics or religion? And what is the outcome, or what was the outcome of that conversation? Because if you two have different views when it comes to politics and religion, then I bet the ending or the result of that conversation is not that good. And maybe you have or you had um, conflict with that person because of the topic. Okay? Instead, start a conversation focusing on what you experience at the moment, ambience or atmosphere of the wedding reception, music, food, or your relationship to the bride or groom. These are topics sufficient until the reception ends. And note that one topic may lead to another. You should be able to hold a conversation at a social event without offending the other party. Sometimes when we share or when we talk about something, we cannot avoid that someone might get offended with what we have said. Okay? It could be because we are not sensitive enough to consider the person, or maybe they are too sensitive to the topic. Okay? But the better solution for that is that we could apologize to that person, even though um, it was unintentional, to resolve the conflict that may arise from offending the person. Okay? Because it will also avoid the awkwardness that might happen in the future. In other words, topic initiation should be followed by topic maintenance, topic change or shift, and finally, topic closure. Maybe you have experienced a situation where someone who was talking to you will not stop talking about a topic that was making you uncomfortable. Okay? So, what do you usually do to change the topic or to close the topic? Okay. I believe we have our own ways to change the topic or to close the topic in a good way. Okay. And here are the apps or the icons of the apps that we use for the next mode of communication, which is video communication. The very common here is the Messenger or the Facebook Messenger. Next is WhatsApp. Okay. Next is a Zoom icon. Next is the Google Meet. Okay, this one is an old design of the icon of Google Meet. Next, we have Skype, of course, Snapchat, and I think this one is a very, very old software. Okay, this is called the Yahoo Messenger. Even before Facebook started, Yahoo existed already, like ahead of Facebook years, a few years ahead of Facebook Messenger. Okay, so for the video communication, I think we are all aware of this one since we have our smartphones and we also use that for class. Web cameras are used so that two or more people who cannot interact face to face can communicate, just like what we are doing. And if there are no technical glitches encountered, this could be a very effective mode of communication, especially for people separated by distance. Okay? For example, you may engage in a conversation via Skype or via Facebook Messenger with your loved ones, especially during significant, meaningful, or memorable occasions. An example is during Christmas or New Year or graduation celebration. Maybe you have experienced having a relative or a family member um, work overseas and not able to attend your graduation or the occasion. So what we usually do is we video chat with them so that they would still feel that they are there with us celebrating the event. And you're also able to hear clearly the voice and see up close the face of your beloved. Other electronic applications that allow video calls are Viber, WhatsApp, Apple's FaceTime, and Facebook Messenger, among others. In more formal settings, people can also engage in video conferencing through the use of tools such as the famous applications Zoom and Google Meet. So, in our class, we use Google Meet, and I think most of you are using Google Meet in your classes too. Okay? And while this is a convenient communication mode for people who want to reach out to each other despite distance, a disadvantage is the time zone difference between countries. So, what do you do when the person you are talking to lives in a country with a different time zone? Of course, in this case, one of them or one of you should make the necessary adjustments to pave the way for a successful communication. So you may want to set a time that is both convenient to the both of you. Okay? And I have also used the same icons for the next mode of communication, which is the audio communication. So here, these apps, we can just turn off the camera so that we can use it to voice call a person. Okay? So in audio communication, it's like video communication without or minus the web cameras. Here, only the voice of the speaker is heard, and someone's voice is heard through the telephone or an answering machine when the other party is not able to answer a call. It's also quite difficult, especially for listening to people with different accents. Okay? So, if you have known someone or if you used to work in a call center, then you may have encountered people with different accents. Okay? And we also have this perception that if a person is an American, we tend to believe that they all have the same accents. But it's not true because there are some states in the United States that has a different accent. Okay? And an obvious downside of this mode is not being able to see the body language or cues to the person you are talking to. And also, if you're going to call someone without seeing his or her body language, understanding what the person is trying to say is very difficult. Okay, and the last but not the least, we have the next mode of communication, the text-based communication. So here um, or I have prepared some icons of the apps that we use for text-based. But by the way, for the audio communication, it is not limited to those apps because you can still use telephone or cell phone to talk to someone even without an internet connection. And here, in the text-based communication, you can also use your phone to text, or you can write a letter, or you can publish a newspaper or magazine to communicate. No, so it could be written or encoded. Okay, so again, we have WhatsApp for the text-based, Facebook because we post status on Facebook, and then Messenger because we can chat anyone on Messenger, Instagram, of course, and I think you all have an Instagram account, Skype, Yahoo Messenger again, Yahoo Mail because text communication includes emails, Gmail, of course, and this one is an older version of Google Meet. Okay, this is actually Google Hangout, but before Google Hangout didn't have a camera. So what happened was Google added a camera to Google Hangout, and then it became Google Meet. Okay. Of course, we have Snapchat, and last but not the least, we have Twitter. So text-based communication includes email, facsimile or fax machine, text messaging, and instant messaging. When you say instant messaging, this refers to the messengers that we are using right now. It has a wider reach and can disseminate information to a bigger audience quickly. And this is also the reason why I send the announcements on Google Classroom and on our group chat because um, everybody can read it in an instant. Okay, so you don't have to wait for it to send because the message will be sent immediately. And social networking sites such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram likewise offer text-based interaction. Okay, so I think we're all aware of the modes of communication, and this is only a very short presentation because everything is there on your module.